This is Jonathan Agger, here for Pro Boxing Fans, joined by esteemed boxing writer Mr. Colin Hart, here at the first press conference for Zach Parker against John Ryder. First of all, Colin, good to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good for an old man.
Good stuff. Let's talk about, first of all, this fight that we've got November 26th between Zach Parker and John Ryder. How do you look at this fight?
Well, it's a perfect test for Zach Parker. He hasn't had a fight since November through no fault of his own. He was going to fight Andrade for the world title. Unfortunately, that fell through in the summer. So he's been hanging around waiting for a fight. And this fight with Ryder is perfect for him because he's young, he's ambitious. Ryder has been round the block more than once, very experienced professional who will give him plenty to think about on the night.
The interesting element for this fight, certainly to an outsider, is the fact that Queensbury Matchroom came together to do a deal for this fight. Apart from mandatory fights, can you remember another fight where they've both done a deal together?
Not these two organisations, no. But it just proves it can be done if there's enough will. It should not disbar fights with rival promotional factions at all, because it can be done. And it was going to happen with Joshua and Fury, but unfortunately, Fury. It wasn't Fury's fault that Joshua pulled out, or should I say, Eddie Hearn pulled out.
So, just sticking with that, you believe the blame is with Joshua's side?
Well, yes. I mean, on what the evidence we've been given, Fury instigated the fight by sending out a challenge to Joshua. AJ immediately responded and said, "All right, you want to fight? I'm ready for it." And then the two promotional outfits, then started to negotiate a deal, and the two TV companies, Sky and BT,
BT and DAZN.
Those came together. They were agreed it was going to happen, and then at the 11th hour, Joshua pulled out. What the real reason is, we don't know. We were told that maybe it was because of Joshua's sponsors. They weren't all happy with it. Who knows what the real reason is?
Joshua's side will say that Fury kept imposing deadlines, said, get on with it, and then Derek Chisora, they argue, was given more time. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think he may have been given more time. That fight was a big seller. That would have sold out Wembley Stadium in a heartbeat. 90,000 tickets, maybe even 94,000 that Fury got and White fought in front of in when was it, April? Yeah. It would have sold out Wembley Stadium, as I say, in a heartbeat. The whole country wants to see it, never mind boxing fans.
Is it now gone, in your opinion, or can it be revived? Is it as big?
You must never say never. My gut feeling is that it may never happen because Joshua's got to remain unbeaten, and he's going. It's going to be interesting to see how he recovers mentally from those defeats by Usyk. And as you know, he fell apart after the second fight. Throwing belts out the ring, etc., etc. So if he can recover psychologically from those two defeats, then it could happen. But my gut feeling tells me it may never.
Obviously, Derek Chisora is the opponent on December 3rd. Mixed reaction, mainly people not in favour of the fight. What was your reaction when it got announced?
Well, I was surprised, to be honest, but I can understand it happening. Having spoken to Frank Warren, Fury, who will hopefully fight Usyk early in the new year, is in desperate need of a fight. And Frank scoured the heavyweight division, and none of them were available. I mean, Wilder, Joshua, White, and the only one he could come up with was Chisora. So it was needs must. But having beaten Chisora twice before, the second time he stopped him, I can't see Fury losing to Chisora for the third time, in the third fight rather.
The argument, though, is that, Frank has two other heavyweights, Dubois and Joyce. Obviously, fans would like to see those two face Fury. Do you I guess, you know, the counter to that is that, you know, they'll want to build those guys up to the point where the Fury fight's even bigger. Fans don't want to hear that, but is that the reality?
Well, I mean, Dubois is still, compared to Fury, still a novice. I mean, I know he's got this, to me, a phony title, WBA intermediate, whatever it is, and he probably needs another few months and another 2 or 3 fights before he steps into the ring for the world title. Against somebody like Fury, by the way, depends who's got, you know, a version of the world title. But he's not ready for Fury yet, and Frank knows that. And who else?
Joyce.
Joyce has just had a fight, so he wouldn't be ready for December. He would be ready in the new year. But Fury needs to fight somebody before he fights Usyk, and Chisora is the only one available.
Just away from this, finally, Colin, you know, you've covered boxing for a number of years. How do you compare the current crop of heavyweights in the UK to what you've seen in the past?
Well, you know, I'm what I'm about to say, I'm going to be accused of being an old fart, but I'm not talking about the heavyweights. I mean, the heavyweights today would have beaten all the heavyweights I saw in my young boxing writing days in the 60s and 1970s. I mean, you can't compare Henry Cooper, Joe Bugner and those guys with the giants of today. But when it comes to the lower weight divisions, I can't see any light heavyweight today have beaten John Conte. I can't see any middleweight beating, shall we say, even Kevin Finnegan or you know, those guys. To get a Southern area title fight, you had to have 30, 40 fights. Now they get world championship fights after 10 or 11. There's a world of difference between the eras, but you can't really put one era against another. Today, through science, boxing are fitter, nutritionally fitter, physically fitter than they used to be years ago because of modern science.
Colin Hart, thanks very much for talking to pro boxing fans, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Hope so.